Today we're going to talk about order of operations and changing fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions and percents. And basically, this is going to be a calculator lesson. So let me invite you to take out your notes, call this Skill 1 calculator use, and make sure you get your calculator out. So first of all, on your notes, I want you to remind yourself that the order of operations, sometimes in our elementary days, we talk about order of operations as please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So what does that really stand for is our order of operations. So if we have a problem, what should we do first? We should do exponents first. Actually, we should do parentheses first, exponents next, multiply and divide, and last we add and subtract. So if we have a problem like 6 minus 3 times 4 divided by 2, order of operations says that we should multiply first, then divide, and then finally do our subtraction. But when I'm talking about order of operations is built into our calculator, if we're given a problem like this and asked to find the answer, fastest, quickest, easiest way is to punch it in your calculator. So let's do that. So if we have our calculator, what you want to do is just punch it in just the way you see it. So I have a 6 minus 3 times 4 divided by 2, hit equals, and our answer is equal to 0. In example 2, again, how should you put these in your notes? Parentheses 4 plus parentheses 3 times 8, double parentheses. Oh, my pen's going bonkers there. What we should do first is parentheses, so we should do the inside parentheses first, and then we would add, and we can do that, but it takes us longer. And so on our calculators, if we just punch out parentheses 4 plus the way we see it, 3 times 8, we'll get 28. And again, where does 28 come from? 3 times 8 is 24. 4 plus 24 is where our 28 comes from. So I just want you to get a little bit comfortable with the calculator, and on the ACT you will be allowed the calculator, and most of you will have these graphing calculators that you can use in the ACT. So last semester we did a lot with learning how to do addition and subtraction and multiplying of fractions on the without the calculator. But when we talk about using these on the ACT, we're going to want to get to things fastest, quickest, easiest way, which again is probably with the calculator. So I'll just have to teach you how to do fractions on the calculator. And so if you will write down problem number 1, and then any notes that you need to write down as far as how you get this answer on your calculator. It's a little different. So fractions, we talk about adding fractions. The way we type in 3 and 2/5 on our calculator is a little different. So check my calculator that I did. When you use fractions on the TI, you'll want to use parentheses, and notice that I have 3 and 2/5. When I type in 3 and 2/5, we have to type it in a little differently, and 5 and 1/8, we have to type that in a little differently. So on the TI, it works a little different. Make yourself a note. I would actually write this down in your notes so that when you see this, you'll know how to punch it in. That's different. Another thing that's going to be different is when you hit equals on the TI, we get a whole number and a decimal number. And when we do this on our calculator, if we turn something into a fraction, we can do that on the calculator by hitting math and then fraction. But what happens is that this will turn this into a improper fraction. So today we're just going to kind of play around with putting things in the calculator properly and then changing it. So let me go back to punching it in, and then let me explain how I want you to write these answers down. So when I see 8 and 0.525, I'm going to put 8 down for my whole number, and then what I need is the fractional value for 0.525. So if I take this answer and instead of changing that whole thing to a fraction, if you'll subtract off 8, and why do I want to subtract off 8? Because 8 is the whole piece, and then we know that that's the whole number, and we want to change this into a fraction. So now you can hit math fraction, and that'll change that. We have our whole piece, we have our fractional piece, and that's how the answers will be on the ACT practice. So that's very different than how you would do with an ABC button on your TI-30. So one of the things that I want you to do is practice punching on your calculator with fractions. So again, get your calculator out. A couple different things when we're punching number 2. First off, we have to say 5 and 1/4. So we have to type it in like that. Then we'll do our subtraction. Anytime you use fractions, we want to use parentheses. 2 and 1/2. We'll get an answer, and some of you might know the fractional value for these. So write your whole number, and again, if you know the decimal, translate from 0.75 to what fraction, then you don't have to do this extra step. But if you don't, what will you do? You'll subtract off 2. Why 2? Because you've got 2 whole, and then change that into a fraction. And so our final answer will be 2 and 3/4. So punch with me, see if you get the same answers. When we use multiply, again, we'll want to punch in whole plus our mixed piece. Multiply will be the same thing, 5 and 1/8. When we get an answer, how do I want you to write this? I want you to write this 17 and something. So 17 and what's the fraction value? The fraction value, we have to figure out what this part of the fraction is. So we'll subtract off our whole part and then change that to a fraction. So when you get to the exercises, there'll be a lot of opportunities to use your calculator in practice, and let me encourage you to do that. And if you have any problems, you must ask questions. So the last example here, 3 and 2/5 divided by 5 and 1/8. If it comes as a crazy fraction with no whole parts, just change that to a fraction, and that will be your answer. So hit pause, get caught up with your notes, anything that you need to highlight before I go into the last changing of fractions, percents, and decimals. The next thing I want to remind you of is how to change a fraction to a decimal and then to a percent. So if you'll take a minute and copy down this chart, I'll give you a couple little notes of how to change from fraction to decimal. Fraction to decimal, you just divide. So what am I going to divide? I'm going to divide 4 divided by 5. And when I do that on my calculator, I simply get 4 divided by 5. 4 divided by 5. I'll get a decimal. So my decimal is 0.8. And then to change decimal to percent, write yourself a note. You always move 2 places to the right. So if I take my 0.8 and I move it 2 places to the right, I'll get 80%. Okay, and basically those are your rules. Sometimes on the ACT you'll be given decimals and asked to change the fraction and find a percent. So I've just made this chart up to go backwards and forwards. So if I have a decimal and I want to change the decimal to a percent, again you move it over 2 places and put a percent sign. To change it to a fraction, just kind of remember that 1 decimal place is a tenth, 2 places is a hundredth. So the first thing you have to do is change to fraction. And then again, you might recognize that this needs to be reduced. If you don't, you can use your calculator to reduce. So if I punch in 45 hundredths, it'll give me a decimal, but if you hit math fraction on our calculators, it'll automatically reduce it for you. Okay, so when you change to fraction, just punch it in your calculator and hit math fraction. So I'll write some notes in here, hit on our calculators the word math and then fraction, and that will automatically turn it into a decimal. It'll take that decimal and turn it into a fraction. Okay. So if I was given a decimal, or when I was given a percent and I want to change it to a decimal, this time I want to move 2 places to the left. So I don't know if you guys see the decimal, but the decimal always goes behind the number. So if I go 2 places to the left, I get 0.64. And again, that fraction is 64 always hundredths when I have 2 places, but you might recognize that it needs to be reduced. If not, punch it in your calculator and the calculator will reduce it for you. So 64 hundredths will be reduced to what? 16/25. Okay, so basically, let's recall how I do what. Fraction to decimal, you divide. Decimal to percent, you move 2 places to the right. Otherwise, 2 places going backwards will go 2 places to the left. And then when you want to change decimal to a fraction, you can use your calculator. That's math fraction button.